Okay, I'm going to do a quick overview in Piskel, going over some of the basic tools to make sprites. So once you have an account, this is sort of what your landing page will look like. Any animations you've made in your private collection will be here. Anything public will be here. So let's go ahead and create a sprite. Talk about first the drawing area size. So over here, this icon with the two squares and the little arrow. You can change the size of this. 32 by 32 happens to be my default. I guess we'll leave it at that. I just want to show you real quick how you can adjust things like that. So you can make this smaller or larger here. When you go to your preferences, the little gear here, you can change things like the background color. I kind of like a darker color myself. And then once you make these settings, they stick. So every time you log in, it'll be the same. You can turn on your grid, which is kind of nice. You can enable the grid or disable the grid. Right now, this is 1 pixel per square. If you wanted your grid size to be bigger, oh, I'm sorry, that's down here. This is the thickness of your lines. Down here, grid spacing, you can make your squares bigger. We're going to get into that with tile maps. So I'm going to leave it at 1 pixel. So right now it's 32 by 32. If I were to go ahead and resize to 16, you would see that here. Oh, I didn't hit resize. So 16 by 16, resize. Now those pixels are much larger, so the resolution is going to be lower, and your sprite will be a little bit more blocky and small. So just to give you an idea on how that works. Grids, I think, are easier sometimes to have up. If you don't want them on, you can turn it on and off right here. Click of a button. That's super handy. I'll leave that on. All right, let's go over the tools. I highly suggest you learn the hotkeys so that you're not having to travel back and forth between your drawing and the tools. So the hotkeys are all here. If you hover, you can see them. Some of them are very easy to memorize. P for pen, E for eraser, things like that. B for bucket. So let's talk about the pen tool. First, pen tool has its own little size thing here. So right now we're on 1 pixel. That's 1. Here's 4, 9, and 16. So larger areas you want to color change your pen size. All right, go back to leaving it on 1. The mirror tool, the hotkey is V, super handy for drawing things that you want to be symmetrical on either side, great for characters and things like that. If you right click in the pen tool, I forgot to mention this, go back to the pen tool, it may even work in the mirror tool. Yes, it does. So either one of those. So long as down here your secondary colors on this transparency, when you right click, you can easily erase things. So that's super handy on the fly rather than hitting E to change your tool. So right click for erase, as long as this is on transparency. All right, the bucket tool, hotkey is B. If you want to fill this area in with a color, you're going to have to change that color, obviously. And you can click and fill it in. You can also click on things like this outline. If I want to change this outline color, I don't know, let's make it a weird color. Let's do like a green so you can really see it. It'll fill in that whole outline. So it kind of delineates the different color changes. As long as everything's touching, it's going to fill in those areas accordingly. Okay, so that's the bucket tool. The eraser tool, I already talked about that. You're better off, and I think it may even work with the bucket tool. Let me see if I right click. Yep, if I right click with the bucket tool, it erases. So left click fill, right click erase. So that's handy. If you need the eraser tool specifically, hotkey is E. Next is the stroke tool. Hotkey is L, I think of line. So it's called the stroke tool, line tool. I don't know, I think that's more appropriate. So that'll allow you to draw lines, straight, horizontal, without having it be all crooked. You can also do diagonal. Let me change colors, Control Z. Let me show you. You can actually see that if I wanted to do a diagonal line. Like that. There's our diagonal line. Control Z to get rid of that. So it does diagonals, horizontal, vertical. That's your stroke tool, hotkey L. You have your rectangle tool. That'll allow you to draw perfect rectangles. Okay, your circle tool. Let's see if I can do a circle up here. Now, this is on all one layer right now. So let me just show you something really quick. If I create a new layer down here and create a new layer, and I want to draw that head, right? And I want to get it centered, a little bit smaller. I want to get it centered. I can click this to center. It's going to center in the middle of the page. Or I can go to this hand tool. The M is the hot tool for that. And I can move it exactly where I want it. Go back to layer 1. You could merge these if you wanted to. Merge is here, and now they're all together. I'm just going to, see, I'm on the move tool, so it's moving the whole entire thing. All right, we've got the shape selection tool. I also refer to this as the magic wand tool. So it'll select a specific area. So if I wanted to change, say, just this arm area and I wanted to change that, you can select and it'll highlight the different areas. So it sees similar colors the same as long as they're touching. So this entire white area will get selected. And then you can do a fill if you want to change it with a bucket, if you want to erase, whatever you need to do. Rectangle selection is kind of handy. You can use that. You can click and drag. Say I want to just wipe this all in hand, click and drag, hit delete. Your lasso tool is handy. So that is for like selecting weird areas. You can use the magic wand. It works probably better, but the lasso tool is good for funky areas like that. You can click and control exactly where it clicks, and you can move it around. The last tool is the color picker tool, super handy. So the hotkey for that is O. Color picker, I don't know, I try to think of a hotkey that makes sense for O. But anyway, so it's color picker. So say I've been drawing and I'm designing something and I'm like, shoot, I want to grab that green. Well, you can take your dropper tool, hotkey O, and I can click it. And now I'm on the green. I can go to my pen tool and continue to draw with that green. If I wanted to change, hit O on the fly. I can suck up. I call it sucking up because it's a dropper, that dark green. I can hit P, go back to my pen tool and start drawing with that color. Okay, I'm gonna right click to erase those. So that's pretty much it for the basic tools over here. Let's head over here and take a look at some of these tools. So these are kind of cool. So you can flip things vertically or horizontally. Right now this is asymmetrical, so it's not going to show it. You can counterclockwise move things. That's handy for animation for sure. The clone tool is going to clone the current layer you're on. If you have multiple layers, that's where that comes into handy. And then again, your align image to center. I just clicked it. Let me hit Control Z to go back. You really don't want your sprites touching the edges. You want a little bit of wiggle room. So by centering it now, I'm good to go with at least one pixel around it. That's pretty much it for your tools. You've got layers. This is your frames. If you had animations, which let me go ahead and show you. If I were to add a frame here, actually, let me delete that. You can hit delete. If I were to go here and duplicate this frame and make a change to this frame, for example, if I were to rotate this, right, and I were to duplicate, rotate it again, and duplicate, rotate again. Okay, now you can see the preview of the animation. If I slow this down a little bit, now you have an animation that looks like it's sort of rotating around. So that's where your frames are. Again, this is just a super basic intro. I really encourage you just to play with Pixel and just get used to things, and that's how the best way to learn. So good luck.